Good morning. Happy Monday. I'm coming to you now again from my office. We're changing it up. Every day is something different. I want to bring to you this morning a passage that I really enjoy. And it's a passage that comes from the book of John, chapter 2. And it's a really famous story. And if you've had anything to do with the Bible, you've probably heard it before. I'm going to read it and then let you know what stands out to me and what helps me. This is it, John chapter 2. It says, the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Dear woman, that's not our problem, Jesus replied. My time has not yet come. But his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. So standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. So Jesus told the servants, fill up the jars with water. And when the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies. So the servants followed his instructions. When the MC tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, he called the bridegroom over. A host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then, when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now. This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and all the disciples believed in him. Firstly, the thing that stands out to me is that last verse there. It says, this miraculous sign in verse 11 at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This is a miracle that Jesus did, something phenomenal, turning water into wine. And he did this miracle without the masses knowing who was responsible. Because if you remember through the story, the only people that saw Jesus doing what was happening at this time was the servants. And Jesus didn't stand up in front of all the people, wave his hands and make sure that everybody was watching and paying attention. Instead, he was towards the back of where the wedding celebration would have taken place, where the servants were, where these big jars of water were. And he simply gave instructions for the servants to go and fill up the water, dip some out and take it to the MC. He didn't do anything massive, phenomenal, fancy, nothing like that. He was direct and he was clear and he was humble. The God of the universe, Jesus Christ, was humble. He turns water into wine with no one knowing he had anything to do with it apart from the servants. This to me shows me how humble Jesus is. And if anyone didn't have to be humble, it would be Jesus. But instead we find that the first miracle, the first time Jesus does something miraculous, he does it in a humble way where only the servants, the least of those at this gathering, even knew that he had anything to do with it. So I love that first and foremost because it communicates to me who God is. That Jesus is a humble God and isn't about ego, even though out of anyone he could be. Instead, he is about caring for a couple, a seemingly random couple who their wine ran out, so he wanted to fix their problem for them. A small issue in the grand scheme of things, right? But Jesus cares so much about the thoughts and feelings of others that he goes and does something like this. This is how he shows up on the scene. And the context of this too, in this gathering and at this time, if you ran out of food or drink, you brought shame to your entire household. So Jesus saves this family, this new family, from facing this shame, from facing this hurt, and it's incredible. So that's the first thing. But secondly, do you notice what Jesus uses to turn water into wine? It says in, where are we? Verse 6. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. These were jars used for, as it said, ceremonial washing, that when you entered into a Jewish wedding or a festival, cleaning was incredibly important. So this water was used to clean, to wash hands, to wash feet, to make sure that you were clean and presentable before you entered into this space. What's incredible here is these jars are probably a combination of the two. One, completely clean water, but 2, some of these would have been used water for a different purpose, water that would have had all those gross, floaty, nasty stuff that happens when you wash your hands in water. It's this water that was intended for one thing, water that was used already for a purpose, water that was disgusting, had floaty bits in it, all of this foolishness, that Jesus turns into the greatest, best wine. The MC says it, right? He says, Verse 9, when the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, he called the bridegroom over. A host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings the less expensive wine out. But you have kept the best until now. This water that was once set aside for one purpose had been reused and renewed for a completely different purpose. And now what happens is that he takes this water that had been used and renewed and brings new life to it and brings it for a new purpose, brings it for a new thing. And I love that. Because this is water that could have been discarded and thrown away. It's seen its time, it's used its purpose, but God is in the business of repurposing things, of taking something that was once used for one thing and breathing new life into it. So why do I bring you this passage this morning? Because I find value in it and I find hope in it, that my God, that Jesus is in the business of breathing new life into situations, breathing new life into things that have once served its purpose. That Jesus is in the business of bringing goodness out of even the worst and disgusting spaces. That's what God does. And he's been doing it from the very beginning. So wherever you find yourself this morning, it's my hope that you know that God is in the business of repurposing anything in your life, of taking something that was once used for one setting and wanting to do a new thing with it. That God isn't done with your story, nor is he done with mine. And he is constantly taking things and shaping them and doing new things with them. So I hope you find hope in that. I know that I do. Until the next time we chat, which will be Friday, hold hope, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.